China has the largest foreign reserve in the world. They can easily weather through any economic problem. No, no, no. Foreign reserves don't help you like that, okay? Foreign reserves are great and all, but this is the problems. China is colossal. There is no foreign reserve on the planet that could help them through the real estate crisis or the population boom that they're, you know, or not boom, sorry, the population incongruity, the big movement into people entering retiring age that they're about to deal with. I can't help but think China would never invade Taiwan unless they were insanely desperate. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it really depends. Like, would the CCP basically sort of allow reform or restructuring, or would they try to clamp down on power and mobilize the population to some, like, big imperial push? Yeah, I mean, I could be completely off on this. My impression is that, like, China has had such a boom period. There's been so much growth, but in a lot of ways, their market has been kind of detached from the needs of their population, you know? Like, you'll have cities where housing is completely unaffordable, even more so than over here in the West and like America. And you'll have like rural-ish outlying cities that you just have thousands or millions even of empty houses no one's living in, but there aren't any jobs there, so no one's moving there. And a lot of the jobs don't pay anything near the amount that you would expect to need to make to afford the houses, even in these empty cities. And that's because they've been used as like a speculative vehicle rather than as like a measure of actual growth. And as a consequence of that, along with the fact that a bunch of people are about to move into retirement age, you know, it seems complicated. Like, ultimately, the problem is that, like, it seems like they're in a really weird position where, in some ways, China has benefited massively from central planning. Having, like, in a country that large, having the CCP being able to direct these, like, top-down directives that allow them to, like, plan big and plan long has allowed them to, like, you know, build massive networks of trains, you know, build out housing extensively. If anything, it seems like they haven't done central planning in the places they needed to, and they've done central planning in places they didn't need to. There have been some, like, mandates that have been really disastrous, the most obvious of which would be, like, the one-child policy, right? And then there have been some things they should have cracked down harder on, like speculative investment in housing, to try to turn it into more of a public good rather than a commodity. And as a consequence of that, you know, it's bleh. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, it's going to happen over and over again. You know, you should never, it should not be possible to speculate on a finite human need. Housing is the worst thing to treat as a speculative market. Even food is better in comparison. At the very least, like, if food prices get too out of control, there's usually like a massive and immediate public backlash. But like fucking housing prices, you can always make more food, right? Or at least there's a high upper limit to that. You can make more food than there are people. But once you build a building, that building is built, and you can't build another building where that building has been built. It's just not a good vehicle for speculation. It doesn't work. That's what happened to us in 2008. It was speculation on subprime mortgages. It was speculation on housing. It's the same goddamn thing. Even China's population of 1.4 billion would not be enough to fill all the empty apartments littered across the country, a former official said on Saturday in a rare public critique of the country's crisis-hit property market. China's property sector, once a pillar of the economy, has slumped since 2021, since Evergrande, blah, blah, blah. Big name developers, da da da. At the end of August, the combined floor area of unsold homes stood at 648 million square meters, or 7 billion square feet. The largest data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows. That would be equal to 7.2 million homes, according to Reuters calculations based on the average home size of 90 square meters. So if there's 2 people in each house, that'd be 14 million people space. If it's 4 people per house, then it would be, you know, a 28 million people space. This does not count the numerous residential projects that have already been sold but not yet completed due to cash flow problems. So how many vacant homes are there now? Each expert gives a very different number, with the most extreme believing the current number of vacant homes are enough for 3 billion people, said He King, 81, former deputy head of the Statistics Bureau. Jesus. That estimate might be a bit much, but 1.4 billion people probably can't fill them, he said at a forum in the southern Chinese city Dongguan, according to a video released by the official media Chinese news service. Holy shit. Guys, this has been the main investment vehicle in China for decades and decades and decades. And basically, they're in a position now where there are so many empty rooms, so many empty houses, but people still can't afford them because the price of these properties and homes are completely detached from their actual market need. Like, there's no incentive to build new housing in an environment like this. If anything, the fact that this is being said, like, this is quite rare, you know? All sorts of comments predicting the collapse of China's economy keep surfacing now and again, but what has collapsed is such rhetoric, not China's economy, a spokesperson at the foreign ministry said at a recent news conference. Yeah, you really don't want stuff like this being said because it's pretty bad. Not to mention the population of China is decreasing. Yeah, China lost population last year. It's not like these houses need to be filled with new people, you know? They lost population last year. So will the prices drop and then reattach? Well, that would be the sane thing to do. This is actually an example of the Chinese government not going far enough in state control. They should have completely decommodified housing, or at the very least set price caps, or had these companies be like government controlled. The problem is this is their main vehicle for speculative investment, which means that a huge portion of their economic growth has been based on companies being fucking lunatics when it comes to building and investing in housing. And if you're doing that and your economy is based on that, then you can't really nationalize the whole thing because then you're basically shutting out the entire economy. Is this bad to have lots of homes people can live in? If housing is a commodity, yes, it's terrible. Yeah, the real estate sector is like a huge portion of their economy. This could be ruinous. There were a lot of China will collapse in 26 days videos on YouTube a few years back. Neocons love to like extol the, you know, the inevitability of China's collapse. I'm not talking about China collapsing. I'm talking about it having a big bad recession, you know, like a really, really bad one. Would it not be better for them to bite the bullet and nationalize housing now? Easier said than done. Turn the empty buildings into hotels and office buildings? They don't need that either. And it would be very expensive. Look at the amount of time needed to buy an apartment. Yeah, shut the fuck up. 20 years of work for an apartment. Blue is 2011, orange is 2021. Average years a skilled employee needs to work to afford a 60 square meter apartment near the city center. In Hong Kong, up to 20 years now. Jesus Christ. Paris, 17. London, 14, Tokyo, 13, Singapore, 13, New York, 9, Munich, 9, Sydney, Frankfurt, Zurich. But it goes even further in some cities, right? They can't even use most of those homes because they're tofu dregs, buildings built so poorly they're not connected to infrastructure or safely livable. It's so fucked. Yeah, not even to speak of the quality of this housing. Outside all the terrible economic consequences of this, will the price of housing go down as a result? Maybe? I mean, it could, but even if it did, that wouldn't fix the problem. The problem is that the main vehicle for economic growth in China, which has been investment in housing, is no longer it has been signaled publicly as a non-viable market, a direction to go thing. Like that is just not a viable market to invest in. It's not, it's so much larger than just housing. It's like the money in China has popped. The bubble has popped. Luckily, only authoritarian countries are really exposed to this risk. Basically, no one outside of China, a few foreign oligarchs hold this housing, but the political and supply chain problems would hurt the global economy. Well, yeah, of course, it'll affect everyone. It's China. They're a huge country, you know? Risk being debt. Well, that is a problem. Xi Jinping has de-emphasized growth in recent years. His priorities have changed. Yeah, much like I have de-emphasized getting laid tonight after, like, striking out with 14 girls at the club. You know, my priorities have changed. 3 hours in, I'm coming down from my buzz, and there's not a girl in the club left who will talk to me. I'm reorganizing my priorities. You know, I'm actually here to have a good time with the lads, basically. I don't know, Claire Lovelace. I assume that's just like without spending on other stuff. Vaush, China has local and central governments. The housing bubble was formed by local governments to serve the guidelines of the central government. So now they feel betrayed by Xi and his ilk. This is how empires collapse. I don't know enough about it to really say. I would have to like learn more before I could really say anything like that. That narrative makes sense to me, though. This is a lot of reading, and I am not an economics student. Like, come on. Come on, man. Yeah, thank you. Subjected to... Yeah, now that I know. Yeah, sorry, this is a bit too information dense for my level of education on the subject. What I'm trying to say is Western and global banks won't go bust, but Western and global consumers will hurt. Yeah. Well, we might get cheaper Funko Pops out of this. More Temu deals. More Temu deals. Let's go, boys. Stop exposing how these tanky countries inevitably suck. It's not, no, my argument is that China should have been more tanky. Like, no. I'm not taking the like, you've done market economy wrong perspective. I think they should have nationalized housing. I think they should have gone farther. That was the problem, okay? The Dengist reforms have, the mandate of heaven was lost by China when the Dengism took hold. Okay, I think that they should still have one glorious leader whose portrait is held above every classroom, who just one day wakes up and announces that like every peasant must kill every sparrow they see, or like one day he proclaims China would build 1 billion houses by the end of the year, and it just happens, and they're all like wooden shacks assembled by children. That's what I want. Okay, we could do better. Want neo-Maoism. That's partially a joke, right? Yeah, a joke. Really though, I do think that housing should be decommodified. I don't think that housing should ever be thought of as an investment vehicle. I think that like historically just has really fucking bad outcomes, and contemporarily has really fucking bad outcomes. Like obviously, it's like I think that's an easy sell economically. What does that mean in practice though? What it sounds like, decommodifying housing. Like, housing should be managed by the state or by a government-controlled business that has price caps and builds in accordance with political goals in the region rather than what would make them money, It's not a perfect way of handling things, and handling that correctly would be really complicated, right? There's no, like, easy, simple solution to any big economic problem, like managing housing for a country of 1.4 billion people. There's no easy, perfect way of doing it, but I think that, like, yeah, I think that for the most part, I think that you should lean towards decommodification.